where in the cycle of the product and the company do you realize that it's time to pull the stick back? And I mean, we got to go from 100,000 to 500,000 to $1 million. When do you know it's time to like really focus on growth?
That's a tough one. I think when you have something that feels like it's such a cheesy answer, I guess, but like it feels right. Like it feels like growth. And I know what that feels like for my previous company. We built a lot of products, and we had one particular one that went from like 0 to like $250,000 in revenue a month in 60 days. And that
$250,000 a month.
And that's what growth, like to me, it was crazy. Like it was, I couldn't manage it. Like we lost a lot of money because I couldn't scale things fast enough. That's what crazy growth feels like.
Yeah.
And that's what do whatever you can to just like let the floodgates open.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting there at Duckster right now. I think we've done something recently. Like we've done a lot of things that have spurred growth in spurts or even, long tail stuff. But we've done something recently that, we grew like 20,000 users in a day off of one thing. And it's like, okay, well that one thing was successful. Like let's do it again.
Yeah.
And we did it again and we had a similar result. And so it's like, okay, well, can that thing scale then? And so I don't know that there's a perfect answer. I know that I've done a lot of things that I would not have ever said, like, oh yes, let's scale this. So like when you hit the thing that's like, wow, this is really awesome, let's do this as much as we possibly can, that's the time to do it.
And do you think it's just like, I think of like the Facebook mantra of like, break things and like, move fast and break things. And is that essentially what you're saying in the sense of like, it's iterating quickly, seeing what works, stick with what works, but whatever doesn't work, you're just iterating quickly on it?
Yeah, I think it's hard because like all the examples people look at are like they're not even outliers. They're separate entities completely. Like Facebook, their very first iteration of the product, like that they built in like a weekend, had like a 60 viral coefficient or something ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So I've never heard of anyone else who's done that.
No.
So there's no point in trying to use Facebook as an example of what our product might do, right? So you have to look at, well, okay, if you don't have the absolute best product in the world, perfect product in the world on your MVP, which is basically what Facebook did, then what else do you do? It's like, well, then you iterate and you try different things and you try not to, and it's hard. And this is sort of what we did. I left the previous business. Like you find stuff that works, but you have to ask yourself, like, does it work well enough?
Yeah.
And it's hard for product managers, it's hard for developers. When you say, hey, this thing you built that actually works, that people use, we're just gonna shit can.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be willing to do that if you want to ultimately be successful, because I think there's very few examples of things that really sort of worked okay for a really long time and then magically worked amazing. You have to find the thing that's going to be amazing and discard the things that are just good. And I think that's a hard thing to stomach sometimes because people are invested.
So what you're saying is almost like it's hard to throw away good to get great.
But I think it's much harder to iterate good to great than it is to start with a baseline great.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. That's been what I've seen. I've not seen a lot of things go from good to great.
Yeah.
Maybe there are other people that have, and they can prove me wrong. But my experience, the things that start even on V1 that are amazing, you can grow those.
Yeah, for sure.